Hello, everyone. We are here for another review of Lovers and Friends, this time for episode 3. And I'm Jarrod D. I'm excited to get into this episode because we have group dates. Let's just jump into it. First, we get into Dennis's group date. We started it off. D was a little bit late. And Dennis kind of had already gotten into a flow of conversation with Lonnie. I give a buffer for people who are late. Like, if I'm going to be on a date, you have like 15 minutes before I'm like pissed off without saying anything. Like, if you like, it's one thing to, text me and be like, oh, I'm going to be, 10, 15 minutes late. Then okay, then I know what to expect. But if you just don't say anything and after 15, I think 20 minutes max for me is as long as I'm going to wait for you, and then I'm just going to get up and go and do what I got to do. You know what I'm saying? And then they started their rock climbing date. And I thought that was a fun date idea. I know a lot of people think that, like, a rock climb, I don't know. I remember, chatting with some people online talking about rock climbing was like a weird kind of date, but I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's a cool date. You're able to be, physical, and it's not just sitting around the table talking the whole time. You know what I'm saying? You kind of have to get out there and do different types of things and create some different moments with each other if you want to get to know somebody. Then they went and did this one-on-one. I think D won the little challenge that they did, and so D got his one-on-one first. And this seemed to be the first genuine conversation that Dennis and D had had. There wasn't a whole lot that was said. I mean, and I'm kind of running through Dennis's date here, group date, because there just wasn't a whole lot going on. So yeah, they had some words. It was cool. Then Lonnie interrupts, and Dennis is all for it. So, okay. I just don't get how rudeness is attractive. Y'all don't need to be doing all that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It was a little too much. Lonnie seems to be a better match in my eyes for Dennis. They continue to talk. They seem to have a good conversation. Lonnie mentioned that he was a Libra. Dennis said something like he doesn't like Libras because they can't be assertive or something like that. But clearly, Lonnie coming over and interrupting was proving that wrong. I don't even know why that is a question. I mean, I guess people put real emphasis on zodiac signs in dating, and I just don't get it. It's like, I understand. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to talk about, but I mean, to put any real weight on that when talking to somebody for a date, like, oh my gosh, you're a Libra, like get to know me as a person. Don't worry about the Libra label. Don't worry about what characteristics supposedly come along with that, because now you're prejudging me based off of the stars, and it's just like, really? Like, you can't judge people off the zodiac. I was also curious why D didn't have any confessionals. Because Lonnie was in here talking about the date the whole time. Dennis was talking about the date, but D was nowhere to be found during confessionals. That was a little bit of a tell to me that D didn't get picked. But basically, by the end of Dennis's group date, I thought it should be Lonnie. Dennis picked Lonnie, and I was happy about that because it just felt like you're not really going to get anywhere with D. So now we can move into Lionel's group date. Mike was late, but he showed up with roses, so that's like, it takes a little bit of the sting off. Mike strikes me as very much like the romantic type. Like, he knows what to do in order to, like, woo whoever he's, pursuing. They had this quiche making contest. I don't know, it was a cool idea for a contest. There wasn't a whole lot going on during the making of the quiche. That was super interesting that I want to talk about here. So then let's just move on to the one-on-ones. Mike was very confident with his one-on-one with Lionel. To me, he gives me boyfriend vibes. He just seems to have, like, all the right, I want to say all the right things to say, and that doesn't that sounds a little bit manipulative, but he really is saying all the right things. And I think that's more of a genuine thing. He's just grown. You know what I'm saying? He just came off as just like a grown man. And to me, that's very attractive. You know, I was pro Mike since the first time he was speaking up in the mixer. So there you go. And so then he had his sit down with Kelvin. Kelvin's first question was, did you ever sleep with your best friend's cousin or your favorite cousin or whatever? I'm like, that was just the weirdest question in the world, especially to start off a one-on-one. Like, what? That was oddly specific. You could have just talked about cheating in general, maybe gotten a feel. There's a way to frame the question. Lionel, I feel so bad for you because you keep getting these crazy questions from these people. Overall, like Lionel said, he said that there seemed to be kind of a disconnect. He just wasn't really getting what he needed from Kelvin. So Mike comes over and says, you know, I hope I'm interrupting. And that seemed to be enough to kind of set Kelvin off to be very condescending and insecure for like the rest of the night. Kelvin started talking to Mike and was like, you know, how often do you work out? Mike said, you know, 4 or 5 times a week. And then Kelvin was like, well, I have to work and I have to work from A to B to C to D and I just don't have time to work out and blah, 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 blah. Basically saying I have a job. And it's just like, okay, so now you're being really condescending. Lionel was wondering if Kelvin is working so much, where's the time for love? Where's the time for a relationship? He said that in his confessional, but I feel like he should have brought that out to the forefront in the moment. I won't put it all on Kelvin because after that point, Kelvin and Mike were both kind of feeding into this competition side of let me just tear the other person down or let me just dig at the other person. In neither case, it's attractive, so I don't know why either of them felt like they needed to go there. But I will say that Kelvin came off a lot more bothered, a lot more insecure in those moments. Mike was very, like, his way of competing in that sense was very much like calm, cool, and collected. I don't know. Kelvin just could not come back with the lines. Then they were feeding each other the quiches or whatever that they made. And then Lionel spit out the quiche that Kelvin made. And I was just like, oh, that was so bad. And then Lionel's pick, who I thought should be Mike, and ended up being Mike. And I was very glad that Lionel picked correctly. This is interesting because Lionel was not very confident in who his friends were going to pick, but his friends picked Mike, and he ended up picking Mike for the one-on-one. So you got to give your friends some credit, Lionel. This episode overall was, I mean, I guess I will say Lionel's group date was a lot more interesting. There were some moments where it was just like, I'm not getting a lot as a viewer. I just felt like a lot of the conversation was surface. I mean, it's just like, you know, you're asking stuff like, what's your sign? Or have you ever cheated on somebody? And I mean, I guess have you ever cheated on somebody is a legitimate question. But the way that he asked it was just like, okay, so we're not even going to talk about that anymore. You know what I'm saying? I would think on a dating show, like when you're trying to get to know somebody, you ask these questions to try to see, you know, what connection there is. And I just don't know whether any of these guys in any of these cases really dug deep and actually had this, even, I don't know if they had the space to even have any real conversations about what they wanted and what their lives were like and actually making connections. It just felt very surface. So not one of my favorite episodes. I'm hoping that they can get a little bit more deeper. I hope that they can cut below the surface a little bit with these one-on-one dates. And we have seen shows where deep conversations between two people about their lives and about what they want in a relationship and about what they've experienced in the past has been really interesting. And I hope that this show does not miss that opportunity because we don't have those conversations broadcast for Black gay men very often. But that's all I have to say for today. And I will check you guys out next week for another episode. Again, I'm Jarrod D. King. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.